The PGA Tour didn't just cancel a tournament, it just erased a tradition. And when a league that has protected its history for decades suddenly walks away from something this iconic, it's never just about logistics. It's never just about scheduling, because decisions like this don't happen unless something deeper has already changed. Hawaii wasn't just another stop on the calendar. It was the beginning of the season, the reset point, the place where the year in golf quietly started before everything else built from there. And now, just like that, it's gone. Not paused, not adjusted, renewed. Which raises a much bigger question than most people are asking right now. Is this really about Hawaii? Or is this the first clear sign that the PGA Tour is no longer the same organization it used to be? On the surface, the explanation sounds simple. Environmental issues, logistical challenges, and scheduling decisions. And technically, all of those are true. The situation began building when the Sentry, one of the most recognizable opening events on the tour, was forced to cancel due to severe drought conditions in Maui. Water restrictions, infrastructure limitations, and course conditions that simply couldn't meet PGA Tour standards made it impossible to continue. The Plantation Course at Kapalua, known as one of the most visually iconic venues in the sport, couldn't be maintained at the level required. And once that happened, the first piece of the structure collapsed. But canceling one event because of environmental conditions is understandable. That's not what makes this decision significant. What makes it significant is what happened next. Because instead of treating this as a temporary disruption, the PGA Tour made it permanent. Both the Sentry and the Sony Open, events that have been part of the calendar for decades, are being removed entirely starting in 2027. That's not a reaction. That's a decision. And decisions like that don't come from a single problem. They come from multiple pressures converging at the same time. The environmental issues in Hawaii may have been the trigger, but they weren't the only reason. They were the moment that exposed a larger shift already happening behind the scenes. Because when you look deeper, you start to see that this isn't just about one location becoming difficult to manage. It's about the cost of maintaining certain traditions in a system that is rapidly changing. Hosting events in Hawaii has always carried challenges that fans never really see. Transporting equipment across the ocean, setting up broadcast operations in a remote location, managing travel for players, staff, and vendors. All of that creates a level of complexity that most mainland events don't have. And for years, the tour accepted those challenges because Hawaii offered something in return: identity, atmosphere, a unique start to the season that no other location could replicate. But now, that trade-off is being reevaluated. And that's where the real shift begins to show itself. Because the PGA Tour today is not operating under the same priorities it had even a few years ago. The pressure has changed. Competition has changed. Financial expectations have changed. The rise of alternative leagues, shifting fan behavior, and the increasing importance of global markets have forced the tour into a different position. It's no longer just about maintaining tradition. It's about optimizing the product, maximizing revenue, expanding reach. And when those priorities take over, certain decisions become easier to justify, even if they come at the cost of history. That's why this move feels different, because it sends a message without saying it directly. If a location like Hawaii, with over half a century of history, with some of the most recognizable visuals in the sport, can be removed from the schedule, then nothing is truly untouchable anymore. And that's the part that fans are reacting to, even if they don't fully articulate it. It's not just disappointment. It's a sense that something familiar is being replaced by something more calculated. At the same time, the structural impact of this decision goes beyond nostalgia. Hawaii wasn't just a location. It played a specific role in how the PGA Tour season functioned. It provided a softer entry point into the year, a transition from off-season to competition, a setting where players could ease back into form rather than immediately being thrown into high-pressure environments. And now, that dynamic changes. The early season becomes more direct, more compressed, more aligned with the tour's evolving competitive structure. And that shift affects players in ways that won't be immediately obvious, but will become clearer over time. Then there's the question of what replaces it, because removing something this significant creates a gap that has to be filled. Early indications suggest a move back toward mainland events, with tournaments like the American Express in California potentially taking over as the new starting point. On paper, that makes sense. Easier logistics, stronger market alignment, more predictable conditions. But what it doesn't replace is the identity that Hawaii brought to the beginning of the season. That's not something you can replicate by moving locations. That's something you lose. And that leads into another layer of this decision that hasn't been fully discussed yet. The idea that this might not be the last change of this kind. Because once a league shows it's willing to move away from long-standing traditions, it opens the door for further adjustments. Other events, other locations, other pieces of the calendar that may not align perfectly with the tour's new direction, and that's where this stops being about Hawaii entirely. It becomes about trajectory. Because when you step back and look at everything happening around the PGA Tour right now, this decision fits into a much larger pattern. Bigger prize pools, signature events, increased focus on markets that drive revenue and global visibility, less emphasis on locations that are harder to manage even if they carry historical value. It's not random, it's a strategy. And once you see it that way, the Hawaii decision stops feeling surprising. It starts feeling inevitable. But that doesn't make it simple, because every shift like this creates a trade-off. Progress in one direction usually means letting go of something in another. In this case, it's the balance between growth and tradition, between efficiency and identity. And the challenge for the PGA Tour moving forward is whether it can continue evolving without losing the elements that made it unique in the first place. Because once those elements start disappearing, it becomes harder to distinguish what the tour represents beyond just competition. So when you look at this moment closely, it's not just about two tournaments being removed from the schedule. It's about what that removal represents. A willingness to change, a shift in priorities, a move toward a different version of what professional golf might look like in the future. And whether that future feels better or worse depends entirely on how those changes continue to unfold. Because the real question isn't whether Hawaii should have stayed or gone. It's what comes next now that it's gone.